So here in the UK, we have a bank holiday weekend at the beginning of May. So we've got Saturday, Sunday, and now Monday off of work. Now this has led me a little idea because I want to challenge myself to be able to create something, some kind of app, some kind of game within that weekend to the best that I can to build a framework of it. I decided I'd film it. I decided that I'd try and upload it to my YouTube to kind of keep myself accountable, but also to maybe even teach something as I go through the process of putting this together, learning the things that I don't know, and be able to make something at the end of it. Like I said in my intro, it's a bank holiday weekend, so I've got 3 days. Now, I still obviously have other commitments. I've got family, obviously a young family that I'm going to be around, so I'm not going to ignore them. So around that, I'm hopefully putting in the time to be able to make something, because I'm itching to make something, I'm itching to learn something more about SwiftUI, about some of the frameworks that I can use to be able to build stuff. And yeah, I thought I had a simple idea that hopefully will be simple, but I wanted to keep myself accountable to be able to do this little personal challenge for myself. And sometimes these things can be educational for people. So if you're watching this and you want to see how other people program or fail to program, then yeah, maybe this will be useful. And obviously I'm going to cover some frameworks that I know and that also that I don't know, and I'm going to learn that, again, looking through it, you may find useful. So let's get a plan together of what I plan to build. So initially, what my thought was to make, it's been in my head, a little game. So I say a little game, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to gamify it. Basically, I grew up playing the strategy games, real-time strategy games, RTSs, Age of Empires, Empire Earth, Civilization, the Settlers franchise, all of these things. I love that, the whole governing thing of an empire or a settlement or whatever. But I thought, what would it be cool if you could do that with planets? You have a planet, there's a population, food, currency or whatever, and then you can make decisions as they come up to develop the civilization on that planet, or maybe multiple planets, do trade between them, and etc. That seems really complicated, and it probably will be. But I'm just thinking of the simple form of this right now. If I could create that over this weekend, that would be cool, because it's going to have its own challenges. So my initial concept, if I draw this right, is I need a SwiftUI view. I'm going to have a name of the planet that we're governing. I want to have an image of the planet. But tricky part, so I want this to be a 3D rotating image. I want it to be like you're orbiting, like the planet's orbiting, or rotating rather. So I need that to be 3D, and I need that to rotate. If I can spell it, I apologise for my handwriting. Then under that, I'm going to want a population, which is going to go up or down depending on the way that we govern it. Not sure how we're going to govern it yet, but population here, and let's say food here. And just for the time being, just so we can kind of make this work into something functioning that will be affected, these numbers are going to have to make some sort of formulas that they change over time. Which time? Good point. I'm thinking a date. We need a date system up here. Maybe just counting up days or something, maybe a year. Okay, so we need to figure that one out. And then also under here, let's just do some dials that you pull left or right to be able to change some element to the way that it governs. But my initial phase, so my first point is I want this to be all placeholder UI. I just need to get that on the screen. I also need to create a 3D planet. And then I need to be able to create the view. I need to be able to basically import a 3D model, which I'm not entirely sure how to do just yet. I understand the basic part of it, but yeah, we're going to have to get into that. And then build it up. So let's start with the UI. I'm going to go into Xcode now and we're going to try that out. So it's Saturday evening now. I'm going to have Sunday morning, which I plan to get up early. I have Monday morning, I plan to get up early. And there may be some other time in between. So let's see if we can pull this together and get this functioning by Monday, end of Monday. Let's go. So let's start this weekend project. Start it up as a normal app. And I started by just trying to match this sketch that I think you'll remember that I made inside of my notebook. Now to do this, obviously there's just going to be a combinations of text views, basically assorted into V stacks and H stacks everywhere. To begin with, I just put together a H stack just to put the name of the planet and the date. Then I need to symbolize the planet, don't I? So I just put a circle in there just to hold that for a little while and just try to size it up correctly. That's what we get there. And then underneath I wanted the stats for the planet. So I was going to do population, credits and food stores. So just for the time being, I just stuck the text in there, just with set values. We'll deal with the rest of that in a bit, add the functionality, but there we go. That will hold that there. And then underneath we made 1, 2 and 3 sliders. Again, just making some values there that can be a binding to have the slider read to, but none of that's important at the moment. It's literally just going to be there just to hold it. And then with any view like this, it's good just to play around. So if you're doing your own project, do the same as this. Just mess about with the sizing, mess about with the spacing, and just get it to look how you think you want it to look. So I just toyed around with this for a little bit, and this is the finished result. This is what we end up with. I think it looks okay. I might modify this a bit later, but for the moment, as a placeholder, it matches how I pictured it in my sketch, and this is going to work simply and plainly as it is. I also added these dividers up as well, just to try and break up the UI a little bit, just instead of it just being text on top of text and then the sliders. And I used just a rectangle just to go across the screen and sized it up really thin. There probably is a better way, maybe with drawing a path across it, but I always like doing it with a rectangle just because it adds a little bit more control in it. I can just sort of modify it quite easily just with the frame, but yeah, this is how I've been doing it. So that was actually quite fun to make. But now we need to move on to our next steps, which for me, I really want to get this planet in there and like rotating with a cool planet texture and everything. So to do that, I really have my eyes set on Blender, and it's been a while since I booted up Blender actually, but I'm going to get into that. I'm going to find a tutorial and I'm going to try and make that as a texture. So let's do that next. Now we're in Blender to make our planet, the texture and the actual object itself, the 3D object. So to begin with, we're just making a sphere mesh, making it sort of enough vertices on it, and then scaling it, sort of shading it smooth, and then scaling it up to just a bigger size so we can play around with it a little bit more, and I can always scale it down afterwards. I found a really great tutorial to be able to teach us how to do like a planet texture, how to mess about with it. It's procedurally done, which means it's sort of displayed maths, if that makes sense. You'll sort of see it as we edit through these nodes at the bottom here. You mess around with different factors and it creates an image or a shader on the texture, the texture on the object that you can see. And then you can either keep it as it is, or you can sort of bake it, which means actually making it into an image that's like a flat image that then you can apply to an object later on. So I'm not sure which of these two options I'm going to need to do this within the app, but yeah, this is kind of simple enough to do. And this is really generally a really great effect. I mean, look at that. I'm actually genuinely pretty pleased with how this turns out. So now is to try and figure out what have I got to do and what hoops I've got to jump through to get this now into my SwiftUI app. So absolutely banging my head against a brick wall to try and figure out how to get this 3D planet into my SwiftUI view and just let it rotate. So in the meantime, I'm going to fix the next bit of functionality, the simplest bit, which I can do just for the moment so I'm being productive. And that's going to be changing the date so that it keeps going through and adding up the date. For now, I'm going to forget the year side of it. I'm just going to basically get it to run through this array of months that I've typed up here. I've also then created a timer that's going to fire every 40 seconds. and this will then basically signal through to the next month. So to do that, obviously I'm changing these two functions, bits of data at the top here. But then at the bottom here, I'm doing an on receive just to basically be triggered by the timer. And when it does that, it's going to go through the next one of the month's array. And then when it gets to the limit of the count of that array, we're going to go back to the beginning again. Now on to doing the functions for the population, the money, and the food. Now you'll notice the UI has just suddenly changed where we actually have the planet on there. But you'll notice as well that it's not rotating in a 3D way. That's because genuinely the material wise to try and figure out how to do this is just not there. It's not existent. So I need to do a bit of a deeper dive, and I just didn't have the time because I was wasting so much time just trying to figure out how to do it. So in the end, what I did was I ended up baking the texture in Blender. It's a quick tutorial on that you can find, I'm sure, just to do that like I did. Then with that texture, I imported it as an image. I put the image there in the place of the circle and then basically clipped it to the circle. So that's all it is. It's actually a square texture from what I did in Blender and then clipped to be a circle right there. So that was my quick fix to make it look right. But yeah, I wasted far too much time trying to do that. Anyway, on to the other functions. I'm basically just modifying the sliders to then affect a value. And those stored values are going to then affect a function that fires as well every time the on receive is picked up. So basically the change of every month then gives us the changes in value. So every month your titles of taxes and food production, food consumption, and the population change would happen. So this is what I'm doing here. And yeah, there's no solid rules, obviously. I spent a little time trying to work out how I wanted it to work, but it's not perfect, but it will definitely do just for this as an introduction to seeing if this project will work. But I definitely want to go deeper on this and make it work. But anyway, let's get on to showing you the finished result, hopefully by the end of this weekend. So after all of that over the weekend, this is the final result. So we've got our planet with its name and date that scrolls through the year. We've got our values that change over the course of the year as well as we go through each month. And we've got our sliders at the bottom. Now this is sped up because I've done it so it fires every 2 seconds instead of 40, just so you can see the changes happening without it sitting here for ages. But yeah, that would be 40 seconds normally to do a change. So there is obviously a lot here that needs to be edited and changed and upgraded and thought through more. But just for this weekend, I think that it worked fine considering of how much time I was able to spend on it and how I got sucked down that rabbit hole of trying to figure out the 3D planet, which I will get to the bottom of at some point, and I'll show you how I do it. Let me know in the comments below of what you think of this as a base and how you think that this can be built on. It'd be intriguing to see what people think about it. So let us know below. Subscribe for future content on this and other things that I've got planned. We'll see you again.